Hello, 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 Facebook. How are you? How are you out there in Facebook land? Good evening, good evening, good evening to everybody. This is Dr. Carolyn, CEO and visionary of the I Am a Black Woman, I Am a Black Man project. And tonight we are here with our Facebook show, In Between Sisters. So I want you to grab a Coke and a smile, cup of coffee, cup of tea, whatever your preference is, and come on in and tune in with us and join us. This is going to be an exciting and profound evening on tonight. You've been seeing us blasted out. You've been seeing the flyers and the promotions. And so tonight is going to be awesome. We're going to ask that you would share this video. Why? Because all week long we have been doing up close and personal with the I'm a Black Man, Ascension of the Kings, King authors, and the lovely Miss Darshelle McAlpine and I. We have been in the giving spirit and we've been giving away some giveaways, and I'm still in the giving spirit. So I have some things that I'm going to give away on tonight, but you got to share this video. So we're going to ask everybody that you would click that share button, share it on your public page. You can't share it on your group page because we won't be able to find out if you actually did it. So please, for me, would you please, my beautiful kings and queens, would you share this broadcast? Don't hog it all up for yourself. Please press that share button, and on tomorrow we're going to announce the winners of the prizes that we have. I did say prizes, that means plural. So I got a couple of them coming at you, some things that you don't want to miss. All right, so we're going to get started and go into our shows. But first and foremost, I want to introduce the hosts that come and vibe with me every week on In Between Sisters. So first and foremost, we have with us on tonight the lovely Jacqueline Kaba Harrison. Took me about 4 months to learn how to pronounce her name. And so now that I've learned how to do it, I am just so super proud of myself. But the lovely Jacqueline Kaba Harrison, she's the CEO of Realizing Your Potential, the host and the facilitator of the Queen's Round Table. How you doing on tonight, Queen?
I am doing great. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited and ready to go.
All right, that's what I like to hear. Well, underneath her, right below, we have with us the beautiful, the wonderful Miss Patricia Johnson, aka Coach P, who is the CEO of Reigniting the Vision. Patricia is a speaker, a trainer, a coach, and a recent graduate of John Maxwell Academy. How you doing on tonight, Coach P? Well, I can't hear you, Coach P. You're gonna have to turn that mic on so I can hear you.
I am doing fabtabulous, queen and king. All of my beautiful queen sisters out there, I'm looking. And then my king brother is on here tonight, so I'm excited.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. We could feel the testosterone rolling all up through the studio on tonight. And so we're super, super excited. Well, we also have with us, hosting with us on tonight, none other than the boss lady herself, the CEO of Boss Lady Press, Miss Darshelle McAlpine, who is also the CEO now of Boss Lady Media. How you doing on tonight, Queen?
I am excellent. And yourself?
Doing good. I'm telling you, it's something going on with you in this jewelry, because the other night you had on a piece, now you got on another piece. Now something's going on. Something's going on.
I'm just trying to keep up with you, Queen. I can't get over here raggedy now. You on here all fabulous.
All right. You know what I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about. You know what
I'm trying to represent. I'm trying to follow the game.
That's it right there, boss lady. That's it. Well, on tonight, we have she is a guest, but she's also a co-host. Yes, she's a guest, but she's a working guest, okay? And so it is my pleasure to introduce one of my newest queen sisters, Jacqueline Lulu Brown of the Lulu Experience. She's also the CEO and the founder of Revolution Ascension, the Chief Elevation Officer of Celebrate You. Jacqueline has worked in corporate America as an IT specialist for over 42 years. See, first of all, I don't get that 42 years because you don't look like you over 24. So I'm not getting that. I'm not understanding.
I received that, Queen.
So I'm not understanding how you worked in corporate America for over 42 years. But how you doing on tonight, Queen?
I am wonderful, Queen. Thank you for having me. I am so honored to be in the presence of each and every one of you. So thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate and love you dearly.
Oh, we love you too, Queen, and we're so grateful to have you. We are so grateful to have you. So before we introduce our guest, our special guest on tonight, our special king on tonight, let's do a couple of things that we want to do here. So you guys out there in Facebook land, you know how we like to vibe. We want you to send us some love, some hearts, some smiley faces. We want you to chat. We want you to vibe with us. We want to hear your comments. And so we'll do our very best to make sure that we can respond to some of the comments. If you have some questions, we'll try to respond to them. I do promise you that if we don't respond to them while we are interacting, we will get to those comments and those questions directly after the show. Now, I want to ask everybody out there a very important question. Have you purchased the new book, the newly released book, I Am a Black Man, Ascension of the Kings? And so if you have not purchased this, I don't know why you have not. You've seen it on Facebook. You've seen we promoting it. So you need to get to your computer, your phone, and let me tell you what you do. This is going to be real easy for you. You want to go to www.bossladypress.com and you can order your copy of the book, I Am a Black Man, Ascension of the Kings. Yes. And so we'll make sure that throughout this broadcast that we'll keep posting that website so you all can go and you can order your copy of the book. Listen, if you've already ordered your copy of the book, why not order another copy for a brother or a sister? I'm telling you, that book is profound. It is prolific. It is just all that. And you need to have that in your possession. I mean, you can get the ebook form of it, but I'm going to tell you, you really should try to get the hard copy. I mean, it's something about holding that book in your hand that's just going to be a phenomenal experience. So we'll make sure that we continue to post the website where you can purchase that book all throughout our session. So you can go tonight and purchase your copy of I Am a Black Man, Ascension of the Kings. I want to give a little bit of a shout out because we do promote Black business here on In Between Sisters. So I hope you all can see it. I'm going to take a picture, but I received on yesterday my special t-shirt. Hope y'all can see it. And it says Rock With Me. And I had to wear it. Okay. I had to wear it because this t-shirt comes from a very special king brother of mine, Mr. Scotty Page. He was on with us about 2 weeks ago. He's in Brooklyn, New York. He's doing his thing with his nonprofit, mentoring young people. And the name of his organization is called Rock With Me. And so while he was on, you know what? I said, you know what? Can I get one of them t-shirts? I just went on and did it. Okay, I asked him for it. And guess what? He delivered it. And not only did he send me a t-shirt, but he sent all the queens that were on hosting the show. He sent all of us a t-shirt. So if you're out there listening, Scotty, I got my Rock With Me t-shirt. I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to post it up on Facebook because I'm rocking with you, brother, and I know you rocking with me. And I'll make sure that I put your website on there so everybody can go to your website and see what it is that you're doing, okay, in the community to help our people. All right, then. So now I want to introduce our guest. All right, here he is live and in living color. I'm just so, I'm excited about being here with all of y'all, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm like a kid at Christmas because my big brother is here in the room. So, Darshell, would you please, because I think you know a little something about this fella. I think you got a little something about it. All right, so would you do us the honor, please, of introducing our guest on this evening?
So tonight we have the incredible poet, lyricist, speaker, motivator, a teacher, trainer, and of course, he's my little brother, Alpine. I can't call him by the name I call him, he get a little testy, but Alpine, and he is anointed for the work that he does. He understands the dynamic of Black men in America. He understands the plight of our diaspora, and he is on the front lines teaching, educating, and dispensing knowledge so that we can heal and we can rise up. And without further ado, we are now on the A train with R.A. McAlpine.
Man, listen,
That's what's up. That's what's
I
up.
appreciate it. What's up, sisters? What's up, sisters?
How
How
you
you guys
doing,
doing?
King? How you doing?
Everything is good. Hotep, hotep, hotep to all my king and queens, man. I'm sending out blessings upon blessings upon blessings to each and every last one of you. One thing that we want to do today is that we want to, for one, thank sisters. I was talking to Darshell a couple of weeks ago, and it was amazing how sisters are at the forefront of creating a platform for brothers. The queens are creating the platform for the kings to begin to speak. And if you understand the social construct of our homes now, being as fragmented as they are, we find more enmity between their attempts to create enmity between male and female, king and queen, because the powers to be understands that we are a formidable foe when we are united, when we are moving together, when we understand that it is not a caste system, that it is not a hierarchy, but it is a yin and yang. It is a duality that we create with each other. And it's not like what I provide is greater than what you provide, or what you provide is greater than what I provide. It's an understanding that whatever we provide, it is stronger when we provide it together. And so one thing that I want to encourage everybody who's tuned in, even as you're listening to, different topics that we have, at the foundation of what we need to accomplish in this conversation is understanding how to identify the enmity, how to identify the attacks, and how to neutralize it, because now we have been made aware. We have been enlightened. The epiphany, the light has been turned on. And once it's been turned on, game begins to recognize game, and we stop allowing them to play us. We want to play them so bad. We understand that if you ever look at society, when we start catching up, they start changing the tempo. And we want to make them have to change the tempo so much that they get tired because we're catching up just that much.
That part.
That part.
When you said that, Alpine, I thought about, I love boxing, and I thought about the greatest fighter in the whole wide world, Muhammad Ali. And he had this technique that he called rope-a-dope, and it's where he would be dancing around, so much that he would wear his opponent out. And by just when he realized that his opponent got wore out because he was dancing them around and ducking and dodging so much, then all of a sudden he would throw that final thrust, and that's how he would knock him out. And that was one of his greatest techniques. So when you said that, I thought about the rope-a-dope technique, wearing our opponent out. So we're going to go back into our discussion on tonight. And again, those of you who are watching, we do want you to chime in with us, invite with us by sending us your chats and sending us your comments, your questions. We promise to try to get to all of the hosts will try to respond to some of the chat posts, the questions that you do have. And we do invite them to come in if you have some questions for McAlpine. Well, we call him Alpine, so y'all just get used to that tonight. We call him Alpine. I'm trying to call him all these names, but we call him Alpine, so that's the one we're gonna stick with. All right. So if y'all have some questions for him, all right, or for any of us, if you put them in the chat and we don't get to it tonight, we do make you a solemn promise that we will come back, and whoever you address the question to, that person will make it their business to respond to your questions or address whatever issue you might want to put into the chat. But on tonight, the theme of our discussion on tonight is moving in and out of the system, a close look at racism, a close look at systemic racism. So before I begin, I kind of want to give a little bit of a working definition for systemic racism. But before I do that, Alpine, I want to ask you, not necessarily about the topic that we're talking about tonight, but I want to ask you, from hearing from your heart as a Black man, what's on your heart right now for our people? What is your greatest concern for our people right now?
Well, one of my greatest concerns for our people right now is the inability to understand how group dynamics changes our forecast. It changes our next benchmark. We need to begin to understand, like during the civil rights movement, we wanted to push the narrative. We want you to treat us civil. We want you to believe that we are human. And because we are human, we have an expectation, those inalienable rights that you talk about, that those include us. What we fail to understand is that when that 4score and 7 was created, those inalienable rights were never created for you. So it is hard for them to see you as one of those who are entitled to that inalienable right. And so for us, we are focused on civility when we need to be focused on economics, group economics, the group economic dynamic. Because if you, I know that the Nation of Islam, I don't ascribe to the Nation of Islam, but I appreciate knowledge, no matter where it comes from or who it comes from. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan was talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He began to dialogue about the idea that if we put our finances together, that we will be as large as the 9th largest nation if we operate from a group dynamic perspective. And so one of my biggest challenges right now is for us to understand and really begin to massage the need to collectively bring our dollars together to have compound interest working for us instead of always operating out of individualism, which to me equates to simple math or simple interest. So we need to understand we are powerful. We don't have to spend another dime. We don't have to generate another job. We don't have to have another athlete. We don't have to develop another singer. We don't need another Malcolm X. We don't need another Martin Luther King. What we need is the understanding of compound interest. Group dynamics will take us to where we need to be, and it will ensure that everybody else pays attention to what we have.
Oh, it's pretty powerful. Let me go over to you, Lulu.
Yes.
What are your feelings about what Alpine just said when he talked about group economics and that being in the forefront of his thoughts? And I think most of us as Black Americans, that's in the forefront of our thoughts. And I have some thoughts about that too. But what are your thoughts on what he just talked about?
One, he nailed it. And I zeroed in on where he said we're focused on civility versus economics. And I don't have anything against us marching and us doing whatever it is that we need to do.
Mhm.
But focus on the economics, he nailed it right there. And we've got to change and shift where all of our energy goes. And I agree that we use those terms very loosely with, well, we need, another Malcolm, the Malcolm of today, or Malcolm left us with enough information and empowerment that now all we have to do, what Brother Alpine is saying, is it's time to enact what we have already been given.
Got it.
And why, and again, I don't have anything against marching and protesting. That's our right, but it can't be just that. There has to be a plan, an action, and execution of the plan. And so all that he's talking about, the economics and those pieces, we have to have a plan to execute within that. and a plan to execute what Malcolm talked about or what Martin talked about. You can go and find those YouTubes and listen and look for the YouTubes of the messages that have been hidden, the messages that you didn't hear or you didn't see on replays or captions on mass media. The information is there. Now it's time to put the action and the work in. And if we can come together and do that, as the brother said, we are a powerful force to be reckoned with. But I like something else I heard him talk about, the family. Understanding that our families, we need our families to build dynasties. Dynasties are what turned into major corporations that we have today. It started with a family and then became a dynasty. Now there are major corporations. So not being at enmity with our kings and not being separated and thinking that, well, I could do it all by myself and I don't need this one and I don't need him and he doesn't need her. It's coming together. And if we come together and we have an actual plan that we are executing on, we are tracking progress, then we don't have to beg a system for something that, quite honestly, they are never going to give us.
Right.
They are not going to give it back. The foolish man would think that a system would build something and gain what they have gained, and then they're just going to give it all back. It's not going to happen. You may get pieces of it. You may get a little bit to pacify you. We give babies pacifiers. You may get a little bit to suck on for long enough to stop you from crying, but you're not going to get the meat. You're not going to get, they'll keep feeding you formula, but they're not going to give you the meat. The meat is what Brother Alpine is talking about. That's what came to my mind, is what he's talking about is real meat. It's the feast, not the garbage that they throw, okay, here, I don't want that. Let me scrape my plate. You know how you scrape your plate into the garbage? These are the leftovers. You can have that. No, it's time for us to formulate the plan and execute it.
I agree with that. That's pretty powerful. Alpine, what were you going to say in regards to that, what she just said, what that sister just spoke?
And one of the things that I really appreciate you, Lulu.
Yes.
But one of the things he talked about is caste. And it's a caste system. We have to understand racism is a caste system. Little sister, Pulitzer Prize winning author, I think her name is Isabella Wilkins. She just published a book that talked about the caste system. She's a sister that several years ago created a book that talked about the migration. I think it's the warmth of other sons. And it talked about the migration of Blacks from the South to the North. She's just created another book that talked about the caste system. He says that it's deeper than racism. It is a hierarchy system that they want to make sure that they can maintain from the point in time that the Constitution or the United States was formed. They don't want to change. They don't want to have minorities begin to outnumber whites. They want to keep the same status quo, and they're willing to use pandemics. They're willing to use vaccinations. They're willing to use water and lead and water. They're willing to do whatever it is that they need to do to make sure that that caste system stays in place, because then they begin to create what is beautiful. They begin to create who you should value, who you shouldn't value. They begin to create who should be monetized or who should be denied. They begin to create and cultivate the system that they've already established. And so in order for us to understand, it's racism, but it's a caste system that is predicated on race. And we need to begin to once again, start doing more research on caste systems, because we'll talk about the caste systems in India and other places, but we act like America doesn't have a caste system. And it is one of the perpetuators of that same type of thought process and ideology.
You better talk about it. Let me read this definition that I found. I actually found two. I mean, I perused the internet to find several definitions, but I found two that I was pretty much in agreement with. I want to read one. Systemic racism is a structural phenomenon, meaning the practices and behaviors that perpetuate racism within a system and are baked into the system itself. This also means that regardless of now this, Alpine, this is what disturbed me when I read this particular definition. I want to talk about this a little bit. This also means that regardless of intention, most people, it didn't say white or black, it said most people participate in some way with the systems that are in place. Your response to that, Alpine?
We do. So let me give you an example. When creating red line systems, right? It's a systemic system. We have to participate in it. Why? Because if we want to live somewhere, we have to move into those areas. Because if we move in other areas, when that system was first created, you'll lose your life. You'll lose your home. No matter how much you just put down on your home, if in the event you were not able as a Black person, if it's a white only neighborhood, you have to move out to that particular space. Okay. Another way we participate in that idea is the welfare system. For some reason, we as a people believe that we are getting over on the government when we accept welfare like they owe me. Now, listen, that is not reparation. So let's be clear. Welfare is not reparations. It is a racial systemic system. It's interesting. If you ever listen to the Goody Mob got a song, the Outkast and the Goody Mob got a song. He says, I don't know if those fences were created to keep people out or to keep our asses in.
Okay.
That's what welfare is. Where you think you're getting over, they can control where you live at because they can control where you build houses for that population. They can control what you're able to afford as it relates to dietary needs. Why? Because they give you your welfare, your stamps, and they have marginalized what's in your community for you to go out and purchase. They begin to control your lighting, your gas, and your heating because you subsidize all of these particular pieces. They are controlling you, and in our minds, we're thinking, or some people's minds, they're thinking, man, I'm getting over. No, you're getting undervalued. You are being treated beneath where you have the potential of being, but that's us participating in that. And don't get it twisted. We have some people who use that system as a transition because that's what it was created for. During war times when the white guys were out the war, white soldiers were out the war and their wives were having a hard time making ends meet, it was created for that. It wasn't until the 1970s when they really started working on destabilizing the Black community, and you can actually do research on that, as you begin to see the influx of the idea that now the man can't be in the home, because when it first was created, they could be in the house. So then it wasn't until like the 1970s you start seeing that if you get it, you can't be in the house. But also when it was first created, we didn't qualify for it. And so when we began to qualify for it, the tempo changed, the system changed. And so at the end of the day, we participate sometimes out of ignorance, thinking we get over, and they are abusing us. And when I'm saying abuse, sometimes we allow them a place to abuse them because we have potential beyond the effort that we exert to begin to move out of those particular systems. And then moving out of those systems, that's a shackle being released. That's a chain coming off. Chain on your neck, chain on your hand, chain on your feet, chain on your mind that is being unlocked so that you can begin to see and feel and experience your true potential.
That's absolutely right. Jacqueline Cabal Harrison, I see your hand because I know you work in social services, so I know you got something to say about that. But let me tell you something. I love the fact that Alpine did bring out that when the welfare system was created, it was not created with us in mind. Okay, it was not created with us in mind. And then we bought into the system, and it is a system. And working in community therapy, many of the clients that I have, they have taken that system and created their own little micro system, if you will, like Alpine said, and thinking that they're getting over on the system, but they're really not getting over on the system. And one of the things that I clearly see, I don't know how old most of you are, but I remember there was a movie called Julia, I think it was, with Diane Carroll. I think she was a nurse or something.
Yes.
Was it Patricia?
Yes.
She was a nurse. And then you see where she was, at one point she was on welfare and food stamps or whatever. And then they would come in the house and say, okay, you got a brand new stove, or, you know, and you had to make sure that you couldn't have a daddy in the home. The husband couldn't be in the home, and you couldn't buy anything new. Okay. If you bought a radio, okay, when did you get that radio? So it's not it really is not a system that we think, brothers and sisters, that you're gonna get over on, but it's a way of controlling and manipulating you for those few little coins that they gonna give you that you can't live off of anyway. In Georgia, the average stipend for a sister that receives welfare is about between $235 $265, and you know, she may get a whole host of food stamps, but you know, that's about what you have cash in order to pay your rent and all this kind of stuff like that. So if you living with a man, you got to hide your boyfriend under the bed or in the closet or whatever you have to do. But the bottom line is, I agree with Alpine. It's a system, but it's a system to you know, diminish the Black man and take him out of the home, and thus interrupt the Black family itself. Jacqueline, I know you had a comment because you work in social services. Yes.
I was just gonna say, I'm trying to, you know, again, remember everything that I wanted to comment on. But in terms of the system, I totally agree with everything that's being said. You know, it wasn't established for us, but by the time we were actually, you know, able to take the assistance, I think it's used more as a tool of control. And like you said, in terms of, you know, if the man is in the family, you're not going to be entitled to get it, you know. And I still think that it's being used more so to control us. And also, I think that there is this whole stereotype of what the average American, so to speak, thinks about the average welfare recipient. You know, it's this Black woman, you know, that's having a whole bunch of kids and basically getting over. You know what I mean? Whereas the reality of it is, and us working in social service, we know that we are not the average welfare recipient. So I think that some of that is used as, like, you know, this whole propaganda, if you will, to get people to, you know, mainly lower income whites, you know, get them to think that, oh, Black people over here abusing the system, and you know, because they get Medicaid, you know, I can't get this and I can't do that. You know what I mean? To further create that mentality that to continue to, you know what I mean, to continue the hatred, or to continue not to be able to get along, because they're looking at it like you're getting something that you don't, that you shouldn't be getting, that you're abusing, right? So that's one thing. And the other thing was that you talked about earlier. I think Alpine and Lulu mentioned it, in terms of trying to get so-called equality within this system, right? When in reality, we were never meant to be a part of the equation. And I'm with Lulu. I mean, the protesting and, you know, the peaceful protests and things along those lines, that's great. Because on one hand, like the brother mentioned, and I can't remember his name now, I'm so bad with names. Remember when he first introduced himself on our show, I think it was a couple shows ago, he was like, I pay taxes. And that kind of got me to thinking a little bit. And on one hand, you know, we are entitled, or we do need to fight for it, because we do pay taxes just like everybody else, probably more taxes than other people pay. Okay. You know what I'm saying? You know, and I'm not even getting into the higher your tax bracket gets, right? The less you pay, or the more breaks you get, right? So that's one piece of the puzzle. I think we have to continue action in that arena, and, you know, and stay educated, and, you know, vote, and, you know, do our protesting and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I like what you all said about like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, and those individuals laid the foundation, right? And the foundation is to understand that we need to create a table for ourselves. by coming together and not just everybody with all this individual, I got mine, I got mine, that kind of a thing. You know what I'm saying? And all of this separateness, like, oh, I'm better than this low income Black person because they on welfare, I graduated. So what? We all still seen as the same, and we are the same. I mean, to a certain, you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
We need to be able to come together and actually come together and pool all of our resources. And that way we can begin to make our own decisions. I mean, actual decisions that's going to affect us and our communities and our children, that's going to benefit us in terms of education, food, stuff like that. I mean, and we can do it. So we do have those tools. I just think that when things happen, like for example, a lot of things are going, live with, I can't breathe and things of that nature. I think everybody gets riled up. You know what I mean? And then people protest, and then they throw us a bone, or somebody earlier said a pacifier. We suck on and we're like, oh, okay. And that's just to kind of keep us at bay. You know what I'm saying? To create the illusion that something is going to change, and the bottom line is, how much longer are we going to wait for something to change before we begin to take our power and actually stand up and begin to make our own changes for ourselves? It's like, how long is it going to take us to do that? And you know what I mean? So, so it's that whole argument between integration, like, are we better off when we were segregated or now that we're integrated?
Well, I definitely agree. Alpine, before we hear your response, I want to hear from Darshell. I do want to say this: when you talk about perpetuating a stereotype for a system that originally was not created for us, and my question, we don't have to answer that right now, but who is really perpetuating the stereotype? Is it those who are without or those that are within? Darshell, let me hear your comment, then we're going to go over to Alpine.
So my thought around this is complex. It's got some layers to it. So I'm going to pull back to the very basics. So we live in a country where a few people are basically dictating what the rest of us do. And from its inception was designed for those few people to be able to amass their fortunes, to be able to lord over, if you will, everyone else, without giving people the idea that they're being lorded over. So we're a democracy, and I want you to feel like you have a right to say and do certain things. But as Alpine said, it's economics that dictates what you can and cannot do almost in any place. Money is access to resources. Money is access to power. Money will give you voice when other things won't. So you've got this small group of people who control most of the wealth in our country. And what you see online, the lies, what you see in the news, the idea that, first of all, that Black people are just hoarding welfare is completely untrue. I worked in healthcare for a long time. We used to run the numbers. I used to do the striation. We are a small percentage of what is being disseminated in welfare. We're not getting what people, and on top of that, we're getting less if we're getting anything. You're only getting it for a short period of time. Once they started welfare to work, which was many years ago, I worked with the welfare to work program. Once they started welfare to work, you get a couple of years and then you need to find something to do, which is why they expanded and started giving you a gut load of food stamps, because what does that do? We can feed you and keep you alive, but we're gonna keep you subjugated. So you're seeing the system, the systematic racism is not just against people of color, it's against anyone who is not in power or authority. Make poor white people hate poor Black people, make Latinos hate, make white people hate Latinos, make us all hate, because unity is dangerous. So all we see is schism. And we are divided, even as we see amongst ourselves being Black women and Black men, we're divided on ideologies that don't truly exist, but we help perpetuate them. How many times have we said that? And I always refer to my sister, Coach P, who says, look, I did this. And if we're honest, we can all say, I helped perpetuate the notion that Black people just want welfare. I helped perpetuate the notion that Black men don't want to do right and don't want. I helped to push the narrative of racism. As Dr. Stevens said, yeah, the system exists, but I am a part of the system. I was a part of the problem. And as I began to understand that and peel back the layers, then I can do something different. And my last point is this. I really love Tyler Perry. People say different things about Tyler Perry, but there is something that I love about him. Because he really has given a lot of people who wouldn't have opportunities to do things. Idris Elba, Taraji, I mean, so many people. I could name 15, 20 people that I could off the top of my head that he's helped. But I play this video all the time to remind myself of what it's going to take for us to get from under this regime. We are going to have to stop begging for a seat at the table. Me, can you hear me? Can I just get my voice? Can I say I got something? No, as he said, we're gonna have to build our own tables while folks is arguing and falling out on the floor, trying to just be heard. We need to create a platform like this to be heard. A platform that isn't just talking, but that we put money behind it, that we invest in it, that we begin to do those group economics. Because if we don't do that, we are as sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal.
You better talk. You better talk what you know, Alpine. I want to hear from you. But one of the things that you want, and Lulu said the same thing. But here's the thing, Darshell. When I heard you say what you said, and I'm in total agreement with that. And also, I loved, and I'm going to paraphrase when you talked about, and you correlated with something that Coach P said on one of the shows, is that we have to begin to take ownership of our part in perpetuating the stereotypes about our own selves, okay, within our own communities. We've got to take, and I'm very big on that, taking ownership of our stuff, because I think that it does kind of start right there. And when I say take ownership, I mean in terms of, and I say this all the time, because I'm a therapist, taking ownership of our own pathology. Right. Of our own toxicities. It's easy for us to talk about, well, the white man doing this and the Asian man doing this, and that's what they think, and they got a mindset. But I am very concerned about our mindset. The movie that came out, How They See Us, which was a profound and a very powerful movie. I am concerned, how do we see us? See, that concerns me, Alpine. How do we see us? How do we see ourselves? Do we see, I'm going to make a biblical reference here. When Moses sent out the 10 spies and he told them to go out and scout out the land, and when they came back, it was only 2 of them that said, we think that we're well able to take it, but the 8 of them said, but when we went over there and saw what it looked like, and we saw all the giants over there, and we saw the challenges over there, it said, in our own eyes, we look like grasshoppers. So I am concerned about, Alpine, our own self-perception of how we see ourselves, that we're steady talking about we can do this, but do we really believe that we can do it? All right, Alpine, let me hear some of your responses then, and I want to hear from Coach P afterwards.
All right, so there's a couple of things I want to mention real quick. And I think that one of our biggest challenges in creating our perception is what we allow to come into our gaze, what we allow to come into our minds. Okay. And a lot of things we allow to come in because we don't take the necessary steps to replace them or to add something that edifies them. DHS, you can go in any Google search, look at DHS, it'll tell you the breakdown of ethnicities as it relates to the use of welfare. You could clearly identify, if you ever have questions, the idea that we are not the dominant users of public assistance that another ethnicity is, but they create the propaganda as it relates to how we perceive ourselves, and we buy into it. You can go to the criminal statistics of any county or the state. It will clearly identify the idea that we are not the most incarcerated. Now, we might be the ones who get the more harsher sentences, but we are not ones who are mostly incarcerated. But if you listen to the average person, they believe that the threats of crime come from us. You should be afraid of us. But we don't even create the lion's share of crimes. So why is it the percent? And we don't perpetuate the most severe, what they call severe, or there's a term that I'm looking for, violent crimes. We don't populate the most violent crimes. But you ask the average white person or average black person who gets caught incarcerated more, they say us. They're able to create the idea of black on black crime, which is right now at roughly around 86%. But you never hear white on white crime, which just stands at 83%. So we begin, and these are statistical numbers that they're in books, they're in apps, that you can find this information if you're interested in feeding yourself, other than to allow them to feed us. Too many of us are allowing society to feed us the propaganda to nourish us. And for me, that allows us to continue to stay malnourished. So when we begin to operate, that's it. Michael Mack said that the media controls the perception of the people. And it's paraphrasing it. They allow media, we don't own any distribution, but we own media presence. We don't own very few teams, but we make up 70 to 80% of NBA basketball and around the same amount of WNBA basketball. We don't own any NFL teams, but we make up 70% of all football players and dang near 90% of marquee players in these particular sports. So why don't we own any of them? Because they let us know that it is too difficult to own it, that you don't have enough, that you're not smart enough. These are all propaganda tools that they've used to impact the perception that we have of ourselves. But there's so much information going back to Alexandria, going back to Kemet, going back to Egypt, that if we begin to feed ourselves information that edifies and is true, it's not made up. They want to create the belief that blackness started, or black people started, or African people started at slavery forward. And we had dynasties. Sisters talked about dynasties. We had dynasties that we created.
Correct.
And you can follow the Moors, and the migration over into Spain, and the knowledge of Spain, and the educational systems that were created from there on to Europe, on to British, on to the Americas. You can chart its evolution through those particular spaces, but you can also determine where it started at. But these are things that we don't just decide to do. So you know why we have a hard time seeing ourselves different? Because we continue to let somebody else tell our story.
And then,
that right there.
That right there.
Yes.
That right there.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it, Alpine.
Yes.
You have hit a pivotal moment. I hope that everybody could you repeat what you said, sir?
I said that one of our biggest issues is that when it comes to our perception of ourselves, we continue to allow other people to tell our story, to tell who we are, as if they know us better than we know ourselves. But unfortunately, sometimes they do, because they've done the history. You know who the Pope prays to when he gets up? It's not a white Jesus. It's not a white Jesus. If you understand that there are 3 black popes that started the process, that's who he prays.
That's right.
So that's what's around his area. He prays to a black Jesus. He prays to a black deity. Why? Because that was the origin of. But for us, we let them tell us it's white. And even if we argue that, he ain't, We just don't understand the real tenets. We don't want to study the Council of Nicaea. We don't want, there's a lot of things that we just don't want to go. It's too much work. But ignorance and let people use you is a lot of work too. Because that's why we're in the street rioting. Why are we in the street rioting? Because we haven't put in the work. Because if you put in the work, you wouldn't be in the street rioting. You already know what to do.
Can I?
But wait a minute, Jacqueline. Hold on a second, because I got somebody else before you, baby. Okay. Yeah, I got somebody else before you. Because Alpine, now, you know, every time we have this show, y'all know that we're accustomed to saying about, you know, Miss Darshell, we say we having that moment. I'm having that moment right now.
Right now.
Are y'all having that? I'm having
Having it right
I'm
now.
having that moment right now.
Right now.
I'm
Right
with you.
now.
Yes.
And,
right now.
and I'm gonna be honest. I have a plethora of emotions. I feel a little bit angry. I'm just gonna keep it real. I feel a little bit angry. I feel a little bit sad. Because we are people that's known to work, but now, you know, when I listen to what Alpine has said, but now we don't mind working. History has proved that we will work, but we're working at the wrong thing. Anyway, Coach P, let me hear from you in response to what Alpine has talked about.
I just been over here writing, waiting my turn patiently.
Yes, I have
because
definitely,
this is a definitely God moment for me, because I just actually got off the phone with a young lady in Nigeria that I was talking to. One thing I can honestly say is that the best thing I could have ever done was become a coach. A coach that has a lot of statistical and proven stats behind everything that I would choose to actually teach. So one of the things that we were talking about was a seat at the table. And there's a program that actually I'm getting ready to purchase after I get off of here that's called the Diversity Inclusive. And it will offer CEUs to businesses and organizations that will be able to, and you have to be a part of the actual team to get in, and you get the rights and the licenses to go around, because every organization is going to have to give you a seat at the table. Because there's a thing that we call back in the day, nothing about us without us. So we got all these people in these big high places having conversations about us, Black people, Black, white, minority, Black and brown folks. What are we going to do? How are we going to fix them? Well, first of all, we're not broken. We're not broken. I wrote down this. I said, we are looking for a system that was intentional about misinforming us to fix us. How, and not misinform us anymore. So lately, if you notice, this company, I'm just going to use Kellogg's. I don't even know if Kellogg said it, but they are now saying what they're going to do in 5 years. I'm going to have 2 Black managers. Wow. Why do we have to say by 2025, you will put 2 Black managers in your managerial system? And why do we have to say we're going to have 30% Black of people working over here and in management and this and that? What about right now? If they've earned it and you already see them down the road in 2025, why can't they have it now? What do they have to prove to you in 5 more years that they're capable, willing, and ready to take on the responsibility? Because one thing about us, we may not open a book and they may not want to talk about us. They say, if you want to hide something from us, hide it in a book. One thing they know, they think we're not smart because we act a little what they've deemed ghetto. But I said, who told you act ghetto? White people told me I was ghetto. Black people told me I was ghetto, but God never told me I was ghetto. God told me my name is Patricia Johnson. And this is me and my character, and this is what I do. And these are the people that I need to attract and bring up out of Egypt. So when I'm talking about the mindset, I'm not looking for the ones that maybe Darshell is looking for, the ones that Jacqueline looking for, the ones that Alpine is looking for, Lulu looking for, or Carolyn. I have to stick with what I know so I can grow. And as I grow, I'm able to bring other people that have the same struggle as I may have had or had at one point in time. That's number one. Number two, when you talked about the every time we get here, they move the mark. I remember thinking 600 and 700 credit score was the bomb diggity. Now they done went up to 800 and 900 on you. Soon as you get to that certain place where you can pay 0%, 1% for your car, 1% for this and that, they move it up. And then that mark, because we've been climbing. We finally getting financially free, and we're finally going to these classes. But of course, they like, ooh, they done been to Dave Ramsey class. They know a little something. Now we got all these credit repair coaches and all these people out here. So of course the mark is going to move. Every time we get right close to it, they moved it up more margins because they don't think we can figure it out. And as far as one more thing, when he said what I was laughing at when they said when Alpine said we ain't even real killers, we ain't really out there like that the way they say. All I think about is Jeffrey Dahmer. We already know we ain't eating nobody, and we ain't. Serial killing ain't even, unless it's a box of cereal. We not no serial killers and all of those things. So you see most of that stuff when they say how we are the criminals and we have been taught this way. Well, where did we get this from? And that's why when people give a label or try to say something, you too loud, you this, you that, then I let you think what you want to think. They said one thing is about closing your mouth and being quiet and let everybody think you dumb, then opening your mouth and being dumb. But when I open my mouth, I know I have something to say, even if it's a joke to bring you down a little bit and make you feel good. But I'm never going to do or say anything purposely to harm anybody. So we have to come to this table. And like Tyler Perry says, like Darshell said, we got to build our own table. What I know about building a table, everybody wants to be sitting around the table. Nobody wants to take the hammer, the nails, and go out and get the wood. And everybody can't sit down until the work is done. But if everybody wants to take ownership of something every time it's built, then nobody's ever going to build it, because I don't want to say I'm going to do it so Darshell could get credit. I'm not going to say, I'm going to do it and then Jacqueline get credit. Why? Because that's the way they put us against each other. Mm. But if we could just say, yes, this part, like Darshell said, I'm the publisher. And she says that Dr. Carolyn is the brains behind it. But I'm the publisher, and now I added media to it. We got Alpine. He knows what he does. He's the poet. Nobody in this group else is a poet the way he is a poet. He strings together sentences like no other man that I've come across in my life. But the way he does it is because it belongs to him. Mm-hmm. Nobody in this group should be trying to become an Alpine, because it's only one of him and his wife as a team. Like he said, they building something. And we have to get to this point where it's not about who first or second or third, but it is about how are we going to do it. I watch all of this out here in St. Louis, all of this rioting. Everybody done went home. What did you accomplish is what I want to know. Now I'm ready to get on the A train, because you done did all of this yelling, screaming outside. They done brought the guns out and everything else. But what did you accomplish? Zero. So now we're right back on that road right there. So I'm just listening, and I'm excited about being at the table. I don't care who built the table. I'm just excited about being at the table.
I love that. Here's what we want to do. Jacqueline, I know you had a comment, and then I want to, I want Alpine, I want to hear from him in terms of how he believes that systemic racism affects the Black man. We want to target in on that with the time that we have left. Jacqueline Kaba, I noticed that you had a response because I saw you raising your hand.
I just wanted to say that I think I like when we're very action oriented and very clear. Because I think if someone listens to this broadcast, you bring up a host of emotions, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of think to yourself, like, where do I start? And I think one thing that I think that we all are in agreement about is that it starts with us. And if we really think about how we view ourselves, you know what I mean? Like, how do we, when we look at one another, how do we, you know what I mean? Like, are we so busy thinking about, oh, at least I know how it is here in Michigan. You know, oh, you live on this side of town, you drive that kind of car. You know, do you belong to this church? You know what I mean? I'm better than you because this is my pastor versus who your pastor is. I think it really starts with us, you know, collectively, and how we look at one another and how we relate to one another. You know, so I think that's a good start in doing that. You know what I mean? We can be able to sit down and talk about like Alpine was talking about in terms of the economics. You know what I mean? I think we have to break down all of that division. You know, this you know, light skin, because I you know what, in the 70s, I guess, or 80s, it was light skin versus dark skin. You know what I mean? Or this class versus that class. We need to kind of, you know, chill on some of that and just, you know, begin to really focus on how we look at one another. And that way I think we can come together.
I agree. I think that, and we need to put that maybe in the chat. I think that's a good first place to start. Before I hear from you, Alpine, about with systemic racism and how it affects Black men, I do want to turn my attention over very quickly to Jacqueline Lulu Brown. Jacqueline, you worked in corporate America for 42 years. Could you just kind of briefly, and I know it would take much longer, but could you kind of give us just a little bit of an idea of, from your experiences as a Black woman working in corporate America for over 42 years, how did you see systemic racism play out in corporate America when you worked in corporate America?
So I'm going to go to something that's harsh. And I'm going to preface my comment that my comments are in no way, shape, or form meant to indict anyone. But I'm going to answer your question real, raw, and honest. And accepting accountability. I heard that. Here's some accountability for us to accept. And I'm going to talk about baby boomers such as myself. One of the ways systemic racism played out in corporate America was using the Black woman to destroy and hold back the Black man. And we don't like to talk about that.
Okay, talk about it now.
We don't want to get real about that.
Yeah.
But it was a mindset that said, because we are viewed, whether we like it or not or want to admit it, we are viewed as mammy. We just show up looking different. We don't have the ugly, you know, kind of scarf tied around us and the clothing on. We're just showing up in, let's say, red bottoms, dressed to the nine. But we were still viewed as someone that could be controlled, that could be used, that could be, I could deal with her being in these powerful positions because she's still suffering from post-traumatic slave syndrome. She's still mammy and she's still going to take care of everybody else. So I know that I don't have to worry. And so if you go back and as the brother said, you can find lots of information out there. But if you look at the progression in corporate America, and you look at how Black women, there was a point in time where Black women, I mean, it was the VP of this and the senior executive VP of that. And that was done. But at the same time, it was holding back Black men. And we, because of the self-hatred that we had of our own men, for whatever the reason was, we were ignorant at a point in time. And again, a lot of my sisters get offended, and I'm not indicting anybody. I'm telling the truth.
No, we ain't offended because we guilty.
Right. And because
right.
and I was gonna say, because there was a point in time when I was so understanding that I was clueless to overstand what was happening.
I got you.
And so I was part of the problem. No, girl, you don't want to hire you. You know, all they gonna do is try to hit on you. They don't respect you. They don't respect you like they respect the white women. They don't respect black women being their boss. There was all these reasons, and Brother Alpine touched on this in the beginning, that it brought separation, because the more we moved up, the more money we made, the less. Not only did we it be part of the problem of keeping the black man out of a lot of progression, whether it was corporate, whether it was businesses, whatever, entrepreneurship. But then at the same time, we didn't need him in the home anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he ain't no good.
Okay.
I don't need him. So it was what was happening in corporate. We brought that home because we successful now. And then boom, we kicked our black men out of where we were progressing, and we kicked them out of our home. And I'm gonna end it there because I took so many notes. I'm gonna wait. I know we got some other
Well, you touched it. Now that's a show all in itself, but I think that every black woman in this
I just want
platform.
to say ouch.
Okay,
Ouch.
and I'm gonna say ouch.
Ouch.
I'm gonna say ouch too, and I'm gonna and I'm gonna say this. Ooh, Darshell, I'm gonna get myself in trouble. But okay, I'm talking from. That's part of how systemic racism has affected us as black women and our mentalities. We still got a ways to go when it comes to the level of disrespect that we have for our black men. We still got a ways to go, because there is still a mentality that has been ingrained in our heads when it comes to our perception. We're getting better. I'm not saying we're not working on it, but I'm saying that if as black women, if we would be real honest with ourselves, you know, I think that's where the healing could really start to begin, in terms of our perception of how we feel about our black men. And something that Patricia did on one of the shows, and begin to make some apologies, and to acknowledge that we have had that kind of. And I know some of the sisters, y'all listening now, you're probably saying, well, what about the mistreatment that black men have done to me? I get that. Okay, I get that. I get that. That's why we're having this dialogue, because as black men and women, we want to talk to each other, okay, not at each other, but to each other, so that we can understand each other's pain and our struggle and where we got our perception from. But the thing is that we want to get to a place where we start perpetuating those things within our own culture. That's all I'm simply saying. The bottom line is that we have some work to do. And Coach P, I did see your hand. Reginald Alpine, I'm sorry. So what I wanted to hear from you is, could you tell us, in the time that we have left, could you tell us, so that we understand, because Lulu kind of gave us, that's a whole show in itself, but in terms of how systemic racism affects our mentality as black women, can you tell us in terms of how does systemic racism affect the black man?
All right, now listen, I'm gonna make this real quick, but there's a lot of points I gotta hit real quick.
Go ahead.
The first point, Lulu, listen, I appreciate you, sister. You look at any Fortune 500, 400, 300, 200, 100 executive structure, you will see just what she means. You will see white men, white women, black women, any other ethnicity, black man. I've said this so many times as it relates to the Willie Lynch letters, regardless if you believe it's actual or not, but they understand that the woman will control the child. And so when you begin to elevate. It's part of the systemic system. You elevate the female, you diminish the male. You make it hard for him to find jobs. You make it hard for him to circulate within social circles or within the corporate space. You know what I'm saying? You create the idea of there's a difference between economic or educational desire compared to what you actually going to get employed for when you get these degrees. And so what happens is that the carrot always fulfills you momentarily. Mm. It is when the carrot is on a stick that you continue to try to get it that frustrates you. Mm. And so by allowing the women to move into these places, the Black man is still chasing the carrot, but it's on the stick. And they understand that you will never catch that. So what we need to do is begin to understand once we recognize gang, we need to understand that, hey, we're not going to be played like that no more. Okay. Do the statistics on professional women, how many single professional women that exist in that particular space. And they have studies to talk about why they believe that they are never going to be married or don't have a desire to be married if in the event that they had to settle for somebody not making as much as they're making. But the system controls that. But we can't sit on our laurels as Black men, because during segregation, that wasn't an issue. Why? Because we created businesses. We all worked. Most homes during that particular time was two parents working in that space. You know what I'm saying? Providing for the home. We have to begin to create our own business. We could create millionaires. We could create our own distribution. Like I said, a lot of people think that Kyrie Irving is crazy when he talks about we should create our own basketball league. Why not? We make up 70% of it, 90% of the marquee players. What's so crazy about us creating our own league? Oh, they never gonna let it happen. But listen, we got to be willing to go through the growing pains. My second point is understanding. You want to know what we need to do? As individuals, we got to make a determination within ourselves that we're willing to die for the cause. Because until you're willing to die for the cause as an individual, you will never be helpful for the collective.
You better say that.
We got to expect, you know what I'm saying, the black tax. We got to expect COINTELPRO. We got to expect to be infiltrated. We have to expect the tempo to be changed. We have to expect for them to kill us, because that's what they're going to do. That's what they have done. What makes you think it's going to be any different? The difference today should be that if any event you kill one of us, 1,000 more will raise up in our place to do the exact same thing, because we don't have just one person moving. We don't have just one voice. We have the collective voice. So if you ain't prepared to kill us all, and even if you are prepared to kill us all, we are all prepared to stand up and kill some of you too. Until we get to that point as individuals, as men, you know what I'm saying, as women, as a collective, we will always be looked at as less than. Sisters will always be Mamie. We will always be as black men, from education to incarceration pipeline. We will always be in it. Why? Because that's what they want us. And if we're not prepared to change the narrative and don't think it's going to be easy, don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. And one of the things that, another thing as black men, we got to begin to learn to own and keep our stuff. We have to go through the growing pains of going through business, the highs and lows, the ebbs and flows, not just having a willingness to sell it, because you got to understand, when you own a black business, you own the ability to hire black people. Mm-hmm. As your black business expand, you got the ability to hire more. Then you have from hiring more, you get offshoots. Your suppliers, make sure that they're minority. And when as you grow, they grow exponentially as well. We have to keep ours so that we can employ ours. And if we employ ours, we ain't got to worry about their 3% that they want to give us, 3% inclusion participation. We don't have to worry about that. And so until we get to the point where we're willing to take it, we're willing to die for it, then we don't really have anything to live for, but for whatever it is that they have for us.
Do you think, Alpine, we've gotten relaxed?
We have gotten relaxed right after Floyd. No disrespect. I think that my generation was the most stagnant generation. And we've created a lot of challenges. You know what they have just did to the Civil Rights Bill? Do you know what they did? What they have just did to the voters' rights? They taking it all back. We don't pay attention. And so all of the things that's taking place, you know what they did with the Civil Rights Bill? They made white females the most contribution from the Civil Rights Bill went to white females. Why? Because we aligned ourselves with feminists or feminism during the time when we were fighting for civil rights. I don't have an issue with feminism. Separate them. Let us get ours first, and then we'll help show you how to get yours.
That wasn't our issue anyway, but go ahead.
But when we unite with something, disabled people, you know who don't have challenges voting? And white disabled people, they found systems and ways to help them. You know who have problems voting? Black disabled people, Black people in general. And so all of a sudden now, we don't understand the tempo. Let me just bring this one point out. I know I'm not gonna be able to massage this thought process. Anybody who understands Black Lives Matter, I think you really need to investigate the actual organization.
Oh, yes. You better talk about it.
I believe in the statement, the reality of Black Lives Matter. But I believe that the idea or the ideology has been hijacked by the organization. Because the organization does not, based on its own website, support the family structure that we as a people need to be successful. They do support a family structure, just not the one we need as a people to be successful. We're already disjointed. We don't need another system, another organization that desires to disjoint us any further. And I don't give a darn what their names are, what the slogan is, what's your mission. It's like Mos Def had this saying, I don't want to know what kind of brand you are. I want to know what kind of man you are. So at the end of the day, I don't care about their branding. What do you stand for? What are you after? Because we already have enough things fighting against our diaspora and our families. But if you notice, Darshell made an excellent point, as well as Lulu. These dynasties are ran by families. Those 1%ers, those 3% of people controlling their families, the Rothschilds, the Bushes, you know what I'm saying? The Clintons, they're families. They understand the family dynamics to maintain the power, to maintain the wealth, to maintain the dynasty. But they want to dismantle yours. Why? Because until you understand the power within it, we will always be able to control you because we do. And so we need to be at the point where we're willing to die. If you ain't willing to die, don't have no conversations. If you ain't willing to bear arms to fight, don't have a conversation about change. You're not ready for change. You're not ready for change because they didn't take it without spilling blood. We're not going to take it back without spilling none either. And that's just the raw truth.
That's the raw truth. That's the raw truth. I want to hear from Coach P. I'll hear from Coach P. And then what I'd like for us to do is, Alpine, I'd like for us to just kind of reiterate a few of the solutions that we mentioned here in this platform, because we don't want to leave here without reiterating, okay, so we've talked about a lot of the problems, we identified some things, but what are some working solutions? What are some things that we can begin to do today? So Coach P, let me hear your comment, then we're gonna conclude with Alpine going over those solutions that we mentioned here in this platform.
Well, that's kind of exactly where I was going with what you just said, but it wasn't so much as a comment. It was more of a question, because we on about maybe show number 5 or 6. What have we done as Black women? I know you and I are we're waiting on our kings, but what has it changed in the household of the husband and the wife? What has the wife done differently for their king, or looked at their king in a different way? Because I know me dating, I see my difference now, my humility. And sometimes I say, I wouldn't have never did that. And I catch myself because, like I said, I perpetuated that stigma. If you didn't have this car, if you wasn't a drug dealer, if you didn't have this kind of, you didn't wear Timberlands. It was that simple for me. You had to have on a pair of Timberlands. I like Timberlands. So I had everything down to how I liked what I wanted, right? And it was always, you broke, you this, you that, you too dark, you too light. Oh, I don't deal with light-skinned brothers. So as we said earlier on in the actual interview, my thought process right now is, and I'm not trying to really put anybody out there, but I do want to know, as a person that's put themselves back out here to date, Darshell, Jackie, and I don't know if you're married or not, Miss Lulu, but whoever is, I want to know what has changed in your life since we have started these dialogues with these kings. And if it don't have to be nothing huge, what little, every day we need to do something different for our kings, say something different to them, make, just call up and say, hey, what you doing? What has changed? What small changes have we made as queens to assist our kings? And like I said, I'm just up in here because, like I said, I'm back out. I'm dating, so I want to know, because I've been doing some things that have been blowing my own mind due to the facts of listening to these wonderful kings. So now I want to know, what have you ladies? And it could start with Darshell, Jackie, Lulu, however.
Okay, so I tell you what we're going to do, because of the time factor. I want to give everybody maybe 60 seconds to address that. That's a good thing to address, in terms of, since we started having these particular types of conversations, as a Black woman, what types of changes have you seen? Whether you want to talk about whether that's in your home, with your marriage, or just in your entire mindset. So I'm going to start with you, Darshell.
So for me, anybody who knows me knows that I defer to my husband. I always have, even when I was married the first time, I do not struggle with how I'm perceived, because at the end of the day, how we flow in here, like all up through here, that's how we flow. And so I know what he got to do every day when he hits that door, and he's got it when he's, the Black man at the photo shoot, and he's the only Black one, and all these white models are coming down, the white designers, what he's got to present and how he's got to come across. And when he come home, he need to breathe. But what I am doing differently is interacting with my brothers differently. It is giving me I'm seeing through a different lens. And I'm growing, but I'm seeing through a different lens.
That's beautiful. Lulu, since a lot of these conversations have started, as a Black woman, where do you see yourself changing? Whether that's marriage, whether that's business, where do you see yourself changing?
So I'm going to say my son. Part of what I do in Revolution Ascension is awakening, discovery, and then transformational healing, because we have to be healed from all of our ash and trash and garbage that we have, get that from under the rug. So having gone through that process and now teaching it, that made a tremendous difference in my home and my relationship with my husband. But where I realized that I still was making those mistakes, I have an adult son that is going to be 40 this year. And I had to take a step back, and I had to look at how I was interacting, whether it was my son, the nephews, and relatives. They are still men. They are still Black men. And so that's where the work has been. That is where the knowledge and being an avid learner and listening and absorbing and just making sure that I am doing something each day that enlightens me into where his headspace is. So it went from the denigration and what you need to do, and because there was still that, kind of, how we do.
I get it.
There was still that. So yes, thank you, sis. So what I had to do is I had to take that same process that I did, and whether it's marriage, whether it's boyfriend, a mate, whatever it is, I had to apply that with my son. And it's all young black men. All young black men. We have to start looking at them. When we hear them cussing somebody out, and we hear them calling a woman out of her name, we can't do what we did before. We made a mistake. No disrespect to Maxine Waters or anybody. These are queens. Again, I'm not indicting anybody, but we made mistakes. We can't be taking and smashing. What did we buy by smashing CDs and yelling at our sons? Turn that music down. That's the devil. And those were mistakes. Now it's time to listen. It's time to hear in a way that we have never heard before. So my point is, let's hear. What I'm doing differently is I'm hearing, I'm listening actively. We, as I know, my coach sisters know this. You all know that when you go through your coaching certification, the one thing that you got to pass is active listening.
Right.
So it's active listening. That's the action. Actively listen to our sons, these young brothers. Listen, and then begin to hear the Creator give you the solutions. Because if we listen with a different ear, if we take and just kind of change the way that we've been hearing, we will be able to make an impact and a difference. And that's what I'm doing specifically with our younger black men, including my son.
It's beautiful. Jacqueline Kapah Harrison, changes, things that you're implementing now as a result of hearing these conversations.
Well, it's kind of twofold. One, in terms of like with my husband and just black men in general, more understanding. That I would say that across the board, just more understanding. And as far as I have a 9-year-old, be 10, about 5 months, just in terms of how I'm going to continue to instill in him, his like pride about where we come from, and helping him to develop a good healthy self-esteem. So I would say those two things.
I think that's beautiful. And thank you, Queen, so much. That was a great question. Thank you so much. Alpine, I want to conclude the show with you.
All right.
We talked about many things. So some of the solutions here, some of the practical things that we can begin to implement as a people.
All right. Well, listen, I'm gonna digress just for a second, because my lovely wife, Lisa T. McAlpine, has developed in me, great levels of communication, and making sure that she asks me some things that I need, and have a willingness to give me those things, or provide me with those things. So the dialogue helps. It changes if you're open for change. Let me go real quick. Solutions. Baseline, and we can iron some of these out in another conversation. But baseline: support Black businesses. Make a point to at least, I would like one Black business a day, but if not, at least 3 times, 4 times a week, support a Black business. It is imperative, because if we don't support them, who will? One solution. Next solution is
put that in the chat. I'm sorry, yeah. Alpine, I was saying, are we able to put that in the chat some type of, okay, thanks. Okay, go ahead.
The next thing is create a Black agenda. After George Floyd, we went out, we loot, we broke some stuff, we showed some anger, we showed some solidarity, we showed some level-headedness. Now we need to be able to create an agenda. And one person doesn't have to create a Black agenda. If you are a Black person and you have an agenda that you believe we need to follow, write it up, put it on Facebook, and let's build out. Let's build it out, or let's put it on whatever social media and build it out. We as a people have to decide what we need to do as a people. And so stop waiting for somebody else to create an agenda that you could get on board with. Create an agenda yourself, put it in, and we will take the some of those agendas and create something effectively for us as a diaspora. Next thing we need to begin, be willing to give to other causes other than your own. Build a Brother Up is a group that I'm part of, and they're asking everybody to give $1 a week to be able to support a Black business. You know what I'm saying? We will waste $1 on a number of things. So why not take that dollar and give to somebody else's cause? It's not necessarily something you created, but it can be a blessing to somebody else. Another thing, spread light and spread information. We need to begin to educate ourselves to change our self-perception, to change what we believe that we can accomplish. And by sharing information, we begin to set the foundation of our perception of ourselves. Another thing that I am a fan of is, the so-so style of gifting. We could talk about it all you want to, but societies have continued to be successful over the years. You might not understand it. Chinese people do it all the time. Indian people do it all the time. Somalian people do it all the time. And in Somalia, Indianapolis, they're turning around, living with each other, 4 or 5 families, putting all their money together and buying another house and putting another person in that house. 4 or 5 years together, buying another house and paying cash for it. They ain't going through that compound interest that we paying, 30 years and paying 3 to 4 times the value of the house. We need to understand that there are systems out there that we can get behind and support and get where we need to go faster, and not necessarily always need to go through governmental systems or crediting systems. You'll be better off buying it with cash, and you'll turn around and getting a second mortgage just to deal with the credit aspect of it. The terms are different on the second mortgage than the first, and then you can control how much you get as it relates to it. You can even put it in a revolving line so it could work for you, instead of you sitting up there working, paying a bank compound interest all the time to own something that at the end you'd have paid 3 or 4 times what it worked, and it's probably not going to be the value of what you have at that moment when you get finished paying for it. Next thing, we need to be comfortable with boycotting businesses in our communities. We need to support Black businesses, creating businesses in our communities, boycott community businesses that are not of our diaspora until they go out of business, and then we purchase their land or their building and put another business in it. We think that that's unfair. We think that that's mean-spirited. But man, listen, go to Chinatown and try to put your business in Chinatown and see what happens.
Not gonna happen.
Go to the Slavic village and try to put your business in Slavic village and see what's gonna happen. Go to your Jewish community in your area and try to put your Black business in that Jewish community and see what's gonna happen. So we are comfortable with them doing it. They're comfortable with doing it. We're just not comfortable with doing it. Why not? They do it all the time. They never call it reverse discrimination, ever. They call it corporate dynamics.
And I'm not mad at them for doing that either. Go ahead.
We shouldn't be
mad.
We shouldn't be mad at ourselves for doing it.
That's right. Absolutely.
But that's
absolutely
what we need to do. So we can build those out later, but I like those.
Yeah. Well, I love them, and we do need to build them out. And you probably said this, but I'm just going to add on to the list in terms of reforming the way that we think is to continue to have dialogue. Continue to have dialogue, which is what this session is about, and some of the other queens on this platform have podcasts and sessions and different things. We need to have dialogue. Okay, I think that Alpine mentioned something about, and I'm probably paraphrasing it, is that other people telling our story instead of us telling our story, which, by the way, was one of the reasons why we created I Am a Black Woman and I Am a Black Man. We created those stories so that Black men and women could tell their story in the way that they wanted to tell their story. So I think that is very, very important. And I'm thinking of this while I say that, okay? And I'm really not doing a plug. I'm just really, this is what the vibe that I'm feeling, so I'm saying it. If you're sitting out there and you do have a story, something that's burning inside of your belly, and you've been telling yourself for the last 5 years that I'm going to write this book, and every time you go to church, you're telling people you're going to write this book, and every time you get with your friends, you're telling people you're going to write this book, and another year is passing by. We got somebody sitting right here on this platform that you at least make the phone call. Call Darshelle McAlpine, the Boss Lady Press. At least make the phone call and see where that is, because you have a right to tell your story in the way that you want to tell it. And so I thought that I would just mention that. There are several other queens here. We have Jacqueline Kabar Harrison, Jacqueline Lulu Brown. We got Coach P. All of these queens have platforms that if you just inbox them, talk to them, they might have you on their platform so you can begin to talk about what's on your mind. I'm not the only somebody that got a platform, and I don't mind pushing other people's platforms, because we need to have as much conversation as we need to have. The only thing about it is that I like to be proactive. I don't want to just keep talking and we not doing anything about it. Now that's my platform. Okay. I love the conversation, but we need to have the action behind it. Okay. And we need to be accountable to each other. I don't know, Alpine, maybe we need to create some kind of accountability group of sorts, or create an accountability dynamic within ourselves, so that we do keep each other accountable and say, hey, that's what we said 2 weeks ago, but did we do that? Or be able to chart that or something like that. Because I don't know about you guys watching out on Facebook. I love this conversation. I love this platform. I like to talk. I like to listen, but I don't want to keep talking and I don't want to keep listening. I do like to see results. We want to move and we want to do something. Even if we do one thing, that's one thing more that we've done than we did before. Okay, but the bottom line is everybody can do something. I want to thank, first and foremost, our guest. And I'm going to have to say his name for this purpose only, okay? Author Reginald McAlpine. We Queens love you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Powerful as always, okay? And just so glad. Excellent is the word, okay? We are so grateful to have you, and we love being around the Kings and hearing from your hearts. It brings such a balance to us as women. I want to also thank our lovely guest and co-host who will be with us on tomorrow, Jacqueline Lulu Brown. Thank you, Queen. You know how I feel about you. I thank you so much for coming into our lives. You're a part of our sisterhood now, and you'll be here with us on tomorrow too. And so we're just so thankful for your insight and the things that you have said. Want to thank our other hosts. We want to thank the lovely Miss Darshelle McAlpine, CEO of Boss Lady Press. And while I'm saying Boss Lady Press, since I'm there, you need to go to the website, www.bossladypress. Get your copy of I Am a Black Man. Ascension. I can't say it like Alpine says it. Y'all got to watch the trailer. I have watched that thing 600 times. Ascension of the Kings. That brother know he cool. Anyway, but we're gonna just thank you so much, Jacqueline Kabar Harrison, for being here with us, one of our hosts. And again, we want to thank our lovely Patricia Johnson, Coach P, aka Coach P. That's me. You all can catch.
I want to thank Lisa Alpine for lending her king to us tonight, because I know that's not very easy to do when you have a king like Mr. Alpine and you got to lend him for about an hour or two to us old thirsty, hungry, and greedy.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
You know, but we appreciate it, and I love me some Lisa. Yes.
Thank you so much, Lisa T. And Lisa helps me to get Alpine where he needs to be. So I coordinate, she coordinates, and then we get, and sometimes when I'm talking to her to ask her, will Alpine do something, I always tell her, remind him, give me a slow no and a fast yes. Okay, so I thank God for you, Lisa T. We thank you for all of the listeners. Have you shared Because if you don't share, you won't be able to win. I got 3 giveaways that I'm going to be giving away, and I'm going to be announcing it tomorrow. But if you hadn't shared, you're not going to get the giveaways. I'm not going to tell you what they're going to be, because I will be perusing and looking to see who has shared this broadcast on tonight. We will be back here on tomorrow night, same time, same place on tomorrow. Well, we're going to change our time up. It won't be at 6 o'clock because I do realize that it's Monday. And so we're going to change our time up a bit, that it'll start a little bit later, but we'll be back to finish this discussion on systemic racism. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, for hanging out with us. We have had a blast as always. This has been so, so, so awesome. Again, thank you so much for all of your comments, all of your love, all of the good vibrations. Thank you so much for sitting and tuning in with In Between Sisters, where there's nothing in between us but some love and some peace. We want to wish you all a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Peace, love, and blessings to all of you. And we'll see you back here tomorrow here with part 2 of our show. Have a great evening, everybody.